All right, well, we'll get started at least and see if others trickle in. This is more of an open, free-flowing night, so if you are of the free-flowing sort, hopefully you will like that tonight, because we're going to do just a kind of a Q&A. We were going to have breakup groups depending on how many people showed up, but we'll just take time to do some question and answer about anything that's gone on in the training, anything that might happen in the future, anything about the program, anything about Christian Heritage. Is really your night. I'll make a couple comments about some things at the end and a couple things for you to consider. But first, we're going to start by looking at our training portal online, just so you're familiar with it. I know that Aaron and Danny have already been on this, and so they've used it. You have other people too? You guys? Anybody else? We'll show you what that's like, because all of our Families Together training is online for specific roles. If you were like, hey, I want to be a foster parent, that would...
Not all of our families.
It's not all currently. Yes, you're right.
But it's probably not going to be on.
Some of it will not be on, and I'll explain that in a minute. Yeah, I just said that. I meant it's all housed here, is what I meant.
Oh, okay.
All right, it's all housed here. If you want to be a foster parent, it's not online. It's like 11 weeks in person. You get a binder, so if you love to write stuff, great. You can still love to write stuff. You just have to print it on your own computer. But as I like to say, I don't like to print the internet, so it's all here. If you like printing, that's great. So I'll start by praying, and then we'll get into it. So, well, gracious Jesus, we thank you that you are with us tonight, that you're with us all the time. We thank you that at Advent and Christmas we're reminded that you came, that you are Emmanuel, who is God with us. You're with us in all of our activities, all of our thoughts, all of our feelings, all of our hopes and fears. We thank you that you're with us as we consider how we can care for the most vulnerable among us. You're with us as we think about our part in your kingdom when it comes to, I think of the phrase, let the little children come to me. What part are we going to play in that? And I'm really grateful for the people who've been a part of the training, and the ones who are here tonight, as we consider that question together. Continue to give us wisdom and insight, especially as we get done with this part of our training and we consider our future. Lord, give us wisdom. And we just ask you, Lord, that you would continue to move among your people here in Lincoln and across Nebraska as Christian Heritage continues to partner with churches and individuals to serve kids who are in tough spots. We want to see you move, and we ask that you would do that. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
All right, I'm going to pull up this nice little sturdy blue chair. Hopefully it's sturdy enough. So this is our training portal. And the website up here, it's a Google site, so it's like this long, confusing site. We'll send this to you in our recap email tomorrow. We use a tiny URL, so it's tinyurl.com/hh-notes, post home notes. But you'll get the link tomorrow, so you don't have to memorize all this stuff. So when you come to the site, really it's just divided into 3 different areas: host homes, family advocates, and care community. And that's also just right up here in the menu at the top. Now, as Ronnie so nicely interrupted, and she said, not all the training will be online. So I'll kind of start at this back spot. What you guys have done for the last 6 weeks is essentially care community training. It's been basic trauma 101, and care community 101. So as Libby talked about last week, everybody that's taken this class is qualified to be a member of the Messiah Care Community, Calvary, or Christ Lutheran, or whatever church you're a part of, or the whole kit and caboodle, the whole Lincoln Care Community. You're a part of that because you took that, you've taken this training. Now, if you say, hey, I want to be a mentor to a mom or a dad, that's what we call family advocates for now. You're at least, you would be a mentor of sorts. And so most of that training will be a mix of some online stuff and reading and learning about trauma with adults, but some of it will be in person with Ronnie. And Ronnie would meet with you and talk through that material and go through other stuff. And probably a lot of stories and case studies and thinking through how this is lived out in practice. And so that's family advocacy training. And how many hours about would that be? I know we told you first week, but how many hours, Ronnie, would that be if they wanted to go that route?
We have not totally landed on that yet. We had talked about 1.5 different sessions, but some of that would also be stuff you would watch online or your own readings. So probably 4 sessions, hour and a half to 2 hours.
And if you're thinking, oh, more training, well, again, let me remind you, in foster care, you're going to take 11 weeks, 3 hours a shot. And also, when you work with adults who've suffered trauma, it's just a different ballgame. So if you're going to be a host home, again, some of the kids have experienced levels of trauma and levels of neglect, but not to the measure that most of our parents have. A lot of our parents were in foster care. Some of them were incarcerated. Some of them have been addicted to drugs. So their needs are a little bit higher. And so that's why you get that special attention, especially in person with Ronnie. You need a little bit more training. So then the host home training, you could click right there, and everything that you would need to be a host home is right here. We have a checklist for you, kind of in the middle part of the page, and you just click on the down arrow, and you can read about background check and click here to complete it. It gives you kind of a time commitment for each one. Background check takes about 15 minutes. There's a self-study, which is probably 1 to 2 hours, and that's where you get a chance to sit down and think about, and if you're married with your spouse, to think about who are we as a family, why are we in this, what are the parameters for the children that we'd like to serve. So is it birth to 5, is it 5 to 12, is it 4 children, is it 1? That's what all that home study, that self-study, that's what that does. And so then after that, Libby and Susan work together to figure out, what's the best fit for you and your family. You got to take a car seat training. That's probably 20 to 30 minutes. I found out today I have to take one of those, even though I've been putting kids in car seats every day of my life for the last 11 years. So you have to take a short car seat training. And then we do have a policy manual. That sounds really exciting, and it isn't. But it's important because you have to know the purpose and the policies behind the program. You have to know, what you do if there's a medical situation, or what's the policy on, having guns in my house, or can I take this kid this place, or what do I do when mom and dad want this? So all that stuff is in our policy manual. And then we just have you sign an agreement. We don't quiz you. We don't test you. It's really based on the honor system. We believe that you're going to read it. Now, at the bottom here are the training sessions. There's just 4 of them. They're around 90 minutes each, give or take. And they're all just video, not the highest quality video. They were, I'll just put that out there, they were done on Zoom. We did a training back in April or so, and that was recorded. If you go to each session, you'll see the Zoom recording here at the top. This one is in 4 different parts just because we had some issues with recording that night. And then we have the presentation slides for each session. So if you want to follow along that way. Any videos we mention or anything like that, we always link below hand. And then after session, there's always some extra learning that we might reference. And so every session is basically put together the same way. The recording, the slides, and then after the session, some reading.
Yeah, so on that note, we haven't ever had anybody do collectively the CARE community training first and then go and do host home training. Yeah. So like session 2, you guys wouldn't have to watch session 2 because you already have all of that.
Yeah.
You can if you want to.
Yes, you absolutely can watch, because it would look different.
And then you could tell us which one was better.
Yeah. Yeah.
So is that spelled out somewhere? Where does it say you don't need to watch session 2? Or is there?
If you want to be a host home, you reach out to me and I will tell you.
Yeah.
I'll send you the email with the link and it'll tell you what you need to do and what you don't.
Gotcha.
We have some bonus resources, and I'll be adding some more resources here this week. you've already gotten a few of those. But if you're like, oh, I want a good podcast or some extra books to read, we put those here. So everything you need is on this site. And Livia just said, if you, after this, and again, I'll talk about this again later, you'll get an email tomorrow with some more information of things I said tonight, because I don't want you to have to remember everything. You'll get a link to do just a short evaluation of how this went. We love your feedback. And then if you want to be a host home or an advocate, I'll, in that email, direct you who you need to contact. And so if you want to do host home training, put you in touch with Libby. If you want to be an advocate, you want to put you in touch with Ron. If you're like, hey, I just want to be a part of the care community for now and observe, that's totally fine. Like we said the first week, guilt-free. Like you guys have given up 6 weeks of your time and committed to this, and you're committed to trusting the Lord for the next steps. And if you just want to be a resource and a friend and an encouragement to the people who are caring for kids, that's totally fine. And so you'll be able to think about that and let us know where you're at. Okay, so now we'll just take probably the next half hour, 35 minutes, and just take some time for questions. You guys can come up front if you want. I'll get off this little blue chair. I'll get on a little bit bigger black chair. So yeah, we'll just take some time for questions. If there's things, again, about the program, some of you came in a little bit late. If there's things about the program, if there's things about Christian heritage, the future, things that have gone on in training, anything. So, kick us off. Go
So
ahead.
if you want to be a host home, can you start out with easy kids and then progress as you know?
Great question. Thank you for asking that question.
I would say there definitely are calls that we get that from the calls appear to be an easier,
Easier to lift.
yes, yeah. So by all means, we can try to ease you in. We also we don't know what we don't know either. So we might get a call and it might sound like everything is just really simple and great, and things might change and it might not be, because people are messy.
Some of the families I work with for a while before we actually do a hosting.
Yep.
And so at that point I know them really well. We had one family that said, okay, I've been working with you for a while and we didn't think we needed the hosting, but now I have to have surgery and I do need the hosting. I want to meet the family and I just need them to tell me what their boundaries are so that I can follow them.
Mhm.
And we went,
You're the perfect mom.
how are you? I told Livy and she went, does she have family members that need help? Because if we can get more like that, that's great. But we have had some that have, I mean, that mom obviously is an absolute jewel to work with, and it's possible that she will need a hosting here or there again. The hosting that just ended, that mom and little girl were absolutely just easy to work with. Not everybody is, but you
And
know,
then we have in the middle of those two, we have
some others.
So the answer is
maybe.
no, but yes.
It's an absolute definite possibility.
Yeah, it's a possibility.
Absolute definite maybe.
Yes.
And
We can try.
And I would say, I mean, if I call you about a potential hosting, you don't have to say yes.
Mhm.
You know, we'll give you the info that we have, and if you're like, ooh, that sounds too messy, that's not what we're, you can say no.
Yeah.
Guilt free. You know, like you don't have to feel like you're.
guilt-free, but
Yeah, we don't. It's not like we say the next time, oh, they didn't say yes the
Right.
first time. Because part of the reason we have you fill out a self-study for 1 to 2 hours is we want to get a good read on where you're at, so we can make the best match. And that's really what I mean. Really, what Libby's great at is figuring out is this going to be a match. And so we want to put you in the best possible situation. She wouldn't call you if she didn't trust you and think that you'd be a good fit for that kid or kids.
And we've had a couple families that we have reached out to and said, hey, can you at this time? And they go, oh,
we'd love to, but we're gonna be gone in here. And that's not fair. Fair enough. So maybe you're willing, the time doesn't fit for you. So then you can say, guilt-free, no, not now, but next time, maybe, if it fits.
I mean, I can see us, like mom goes in the hospital and has surgery in 2 weeks. Drug situation, detox, whatever that's called.
Yeah.
We don't have any experience with drug situations, so that scares us a lot.
And there'll be places on that self-study where you guys can put all that in there. All that, if you're like, hey, we're great with, boys, but, we didn't have girls, I don't know, your family situation's like, that's fine. Like, let us know. Like, there's some people, like, girls scare people to death. Other people, boys scare them to death. So it's like, if you don't know what you don't know, and it's okay. We just want to know what your preferences are, and it's going to help us a ton. So don't be shy.
Thanks for asking that.
We're definitely not shy.
And that's okay. Either we.
Thank you for the answers.
Yeah.
So with the other churches that you guys, like you mentioned Christ and Calvary.
Yep.
I mean, obviously there's not a set model here, but when you've connected with people from those churches, are they kind of dealing as independent people that are interacting with you guys, or are they typically doing it kind of as a church project or church community where they support a particular family, or is it a little bit of both?
Yeah, great question. Every church is different. Every church, let you guys know, like every church just does things their own way. Everyone communicates a certain way. Everyone has a certain vehicle for discipleship and community. Some people, it's, some churches it's small groups. Others it's adult education. Some it's, much more. If it's a smaller church, it might just be like, well, we're all one big group, right? It's like all 50 of us or all 100 of us. So there's a lot of churches that say, like, hey, we want our small groups to each adopt, one family's a host home and everybody else is supporting at one time in that small group. Others might just say, typically bigger churches like a Messiah, like a Berean or a Christ Place, it's like we're kind of just putting the call out there and the people who respond, and then we'll figure out how to support them. And so that's a part of that reason is why we have you guys do that care community activity, right? So that you can begin to brainstorm people, and I'm going to mention that here at the end. But every church is different. Now, if there's a situation where, say you're hosting a child and you need some help from care community and no one's available, you're at the end of your rope, you call Susan, and Susan's like, hey, I got somebody from First Free for you. Like they're ready. They'll have that meal there on Friday. Don't you worry. Or they'll pick your kids up or your grandkids or whatever so that you can be with the child. So we do, as we talk to churches about this, we are creating a sense of this is a citywide community too. Because there might be a church that we work with that has literally one couple that wants to help. It's like, well, where are they going to get the help? Other churches. So, but
Well, and I would just say the reason why we have it's created in that system, right, where you start with your people who are in your circle first, is those are the people who are going to say yes when you call, right? If I called those people and asked them for something, they might have other reasons why they might say no, right? But they care about you. They're invested in you. And so they'll say yes because they're like, oh yeah, absolutely. I want to show them my love by bringing them a meal, right? Whereas it's a little bit different unless there's somebody who is identified like, oh, I want to be in the care community in general, right? Like I'm going to help with transportation. I don't care, which that is, right? Absolutely, we're going to connect those to the places where the needs are. But I did like a short-term respite situation for 3 little kids. And I picked them up and they vomited in the car multiple times on the drive home, right? Like had to stop, strip off all of their clothes. I mean, we had a 9-month-old, a 1.5-year-old, and a 3-year-old, right? Like sick the entire time, both ends, right? So my care community, right, was so great. I pull into the driveway and like I have naked children that I am carrying in the house. And like some of my care community is my neighbors across the street. And thankfully they were home at that point in time. And Brian across the street comes over and he says, leave your car out, I'll take care of it. Right? So, and he washed the car seats.
Oh, wow.
He cleaned out the whole, it didn't smell like vomit, right? Because he knew, what if she has to go somewhere with the kids? What if she has to take them to the doctor, right? Like, I'll get this ready for her. She just got to get them clean, right? So I get them inside, I get them clean, and they were foster kids, and they still had to go to visit with mom. And so they went sick, and I had to send diapers with to the visit, and mom used every last diaper and wipe that I had. Every single one, right? So they come home, and again, we're sick. So we're going to definitely need diapers before tomorrow morning when they wake up. And it's like 9 o'clock at night. So I'm not taking sick kids out at 9 o'clock at night to go buy diapers and wipes, right? So I text somebody who's in my care community who's really nearby, and I say, hey, I know you have diapers and wipes at your house. Can you drop some off for me? And they're like, yep, it'll be there in 3 minutes. And it was, right? Just like right at my door. Because my people know that if I'm asking for help, right, it's because I need it. And they view that as what a great way to love on me because they care about me. So that's kind of why this system is created the way that it is, why we try to keep it internally within your churches, because then you get to see who in your churches is showing up for you.
We're working in churches, but we're working with the church.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
That's a good way to put it.
And so this is kind of the center circle, but the concentric, if it's needed, so we've got directions. Absolutely.
And there's people like your kids' ball teams, the dance class, the parents you've connected there, the neighbors.
Yep.
That's actually a great point. As you think about whether it's hosting or being a part of a care community, you don't just have to only include Christians. This is a great chance for you to invite the non-Christian people that you trust into your life, so that it's kind of evangelism in action without having to explain to them. They probably will say, "Why are you doing this?" Like, well, I love Jesus, and Jesus is gracious, and I want to be gracious, or whatever, however you say it. But like, eventually, you could include those people in your life. Like now, I feel like I live in a very Christianized neighborhood. I don't know how it happened. Every time I meet somebody new, there's a Christian, but there's a few non-Christians in our neighborhood. And I could see, because this is on camera, maybe Carly watched this, but she's just like, maybe we should be, hosting, and we've been going through some stuff. And so, like, okay, maybe we should. But I could see my next door neighbors who are not believers as far as I know, but I could see them say, oh, could you go pick up this? I'm with the kids. Carly's sick. Our kid, whatever it is. And I would totally trust them. And they'd be like, you must be crazy for you already got 4 kids. Yeah, we are crazy. But so don't just think, I only got to think of church people or my Christian family. Like, this is a great chance to involve non-Christian people that you trust. So.
Lynn asked me that last week. She was sitting next to me. She goes, do you think it's okay to put somebody who's a non-Christian on the list? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
If you trust them.
Yeah.
And
If you leave your kids with
it's another way to minister.
Yep.
So.
If you leave your kids with them, you can trust them. So.
And I'm going to piggyback on that because some of our families are Christian families that we work with.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them are not. Some of them are not believers at all. So we're inviting them into our care community and modeling Christ. And some of them were believers when they were little, maybe, and have fallen away. Mm-hmm. But I want you to know that some are Christians that are there that you'll be working with, and not just the edges of society. Yeah, the heathen.
Yeah.
So,
Great. Other questions?
I feel like I have a lot. I don't want to
All
take up a ton of time.
Well,
So can I just go through a checklist?
That's fine.
But I feel like you probably touched on a lot of them with the manual. But I'm probably going to be able to find a lot of answers there. Like, I feel like I am constantly telling Dana, like, what about this?
Try it. Go ahead.
You know, like, so we have a school-age child who, say we're hosting, they get hurt in the playground, broke their arm. They're in our care. Like, what am I going to do?
You're gonna have to pay the bill.
I don't care about that.
Cash, when you get to the emergency, cash.
I'm like, I don't care about that, but I'm like, do I have any authority to seek?
You actually make the checks out to Ronnie.
There
Go ahead and
is
answer that.
a temporary delegation of parental powers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it doesn't mean that you get to make all of the decisions. Mom keeps her rights, okay? But in that case there, oh my goodness, we can't get a hold of mom. I've got to go pick the kid up and take him to the emergency room. You have
Okay.
the delegation of powers, the temporary delegation, and the child's insurance card, which is probably Medicaid, but not necessarily.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you go to the
And
emergency
you get a
room,
copy of that. You just keep it on you
Yeah.
at all times.
and you'd go in, and we just had a family that just ended their hosting, and they called me, they texted me one night and go, and we're in a group chat, so they can text, and Ronnie and I are both there because Ronnie's supporting the mom, I'm supporting the host, and we support each other.
A lot.
There's a lot
It's
of
like this most of the time.
I think we're friends. And so they go, we're taking kiddo to the emergency room. She fell asleep with her chin open. What do you need? Nothing, we're just letting you know.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Okay, now this is done and this is done and we're going home.
And that form is also good for school communication. If you're in the LPS, they won't talk to you if you don't have that form.
Okay.
They won't let the kids go home with you if you pick them up because they're sick, or if it's just the end of the day, or they get suspended, or whatever the case is. You need that form, and so they'll do a good job of helping you initially communicate with the school to say, hey, here's the situation. This is what we're doing. And a lot of schools know
Well,
what's going
there's
on.
a process that
But,
you have to go
yeah.
through.
Yeah.
So you'll take, once we get that, that is the only form that we have that is notarized. So once we give you that form that mom signed and notarized, that form then has to go to LPSDO. We've tried to find a way to streamline it, but LPSDO is saying, nope. Well, it's gotta be this way. And they have another form that you fill out and you have notarized, and then they notify the school, and now the school can communicate with you about child's behavior in school, illnesses, who's picking up, all of those things.
Okay.
And in the realm of processes, I'd say some individual schools are really sticklers about the district office. Some of them will let you pick up that first day until stuff has been handled at the district office, right? Some of them are a little bit more flexible. Some of them not so much.
I also
But we know which ones those are, so.
I also encourage the families to call the school.
Yep.
Let their school know, let the teachers know what's going on, so there's communication. And the school and the teachers are going, oh yeah, mom told me about this, and so.
Okay.
Next question.
So just like in, going through like our regular day, like say like tonight, we would be here at Wednesday nights, like normally I'm downstairs teaching preschool, he might be at another adult class, our kids are in, their classes. Like if we have these kids, from my understanding, they can't be with anybody else but us. So
Well,
like, would they be allowed to go to, come
Yeah.
with us on Wednesday
Oh,
night
yeah.
and go to a Bible
Oh, yeah.
study?
Yeah.
And be away from us?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna make an assumption here, and maybe I'm totally off, but I would guess in a church this size that the individuals that are working in children's ministries all have a background check.
I don't know.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like at First Free, my church, they do.
Yeah, and so does Christ Place.
Yeah. And so that's our primary requirement there.
Okay.
The other, occasionally, we will have a mom who is a believer who has her own home church, and if she is able, she might be able to get the kids to
Their programming on the
Their
same,
programming,
which usually is on the same night as yours.
Yeah, the leaving the kids thing is more of a concern when it's like there's no one around. I mean, I would consider this a public place.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right? So it's like you're going to church and they can go into Sunday school. It's like, can you drop the kids off at your neighbor's 5 houses down that you didn't tell anybody about for 7 hours?
That you met last week.
It's like,
Okay.
it's something like that,
Because
right?
my next question was like, if we went somewhere, which is almost never, like my mom is the only other person that ever
Oh, yeah.
watches my kids, like she
Oh,
would be
yeah.
able to watch these
Yeah.
kids as well
And
without a background check, or
That also is part of the home study where I think you kind of list, right, who are the main people that
Yeah.
would be potentially watching the children other than
That is a yes with one exception. We would background check your mom.
Yeah.
oh okay.
And it's not that we expect to find anything, you know, really crazy. It's that this is what we do to say that we have done everything we can to make sure that
Yeah,
everyone's safe.
it's a safety net for you guys as well as the children.
So if you do want to go on vacation, you can.
We're still
You got a third. Go ahead.
So just to do like a really quick like Reader's Digest of this, but in our family there is a mother that has been addicted to drugs since she's 14. She's in her 40s now. 3 kids, you know, so we have been taking care of these kids off and on her whole life. So this, it's Dana's sister. So, you know, it's,
I already told
okay. I thought you had shared that the first time, so I didn't think you cared. But, so she has caused a lot of tension in the family with how to deal with her, how to deal with kids, you know, between all the family members. Like, what's the best thing to do and how to handle her and the kids. So I just want to make sure that, like, when we do this kind of thing, that we're doing the best for these families. So are there, like, guidelines with, I don't know how to say this, like, the best way, but say the moms that are addicts, you know, the first family that was here that night that took care of the baby, they talked about how the mom had fallen back and, you know, there had been some ups and downs. So, like, say we have a family like that, you know, maybe goes backwards or, you know, something like that, and, like, the mom is calling us and asking for money or you know, how do we make sure we're not, like, enablers, or are there, like, guidelines to, like, how to work to make sure we're doing
Tell me to call Ronnie.
to make sure we're doing what we should be
That
doing,
is-
so
that
like
is
not
a
make
great
anything
question.
worse.
One of the sessions in the host home training, session 4, we have a 2-hour session on boundaries.
Oh, perfect.
And it's
And- which
fantastic.
Tells you all of those things.
Oh,
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And so, and then along that, for most of what host homes are going to need support for, you're going to call Susan.
Yep.
If, however,
Or
you're
text.
having, or text, if you're having, and actually, to be quite honest, Maddie, the host home that took care of the baby, she and I had a conversation just yesterday about boundaries, because that mom is kind of, she's in a new crisis stage in her life. Not that she's done anything wrong, but when you make a mess of your whole life, sometimes things come back. And that's what's happening in her life. There's some things from her past that are popping up, and it's like, now what do we do?
Yeah.
And so once again, she's back down in that downstairs brain, and she's reactive and occasionally making some choices that, although they aren't life-altering, they're causing problems. And then she goes to her support system, which is Doug and Maddie and me, and she says, "Can you fix this?"
Right.
Now, the reality is, when the mom got out of jail right after the baby was born, she was not in good shape emotionally. And we've talked recently about, at that point, I had my phone with me at all times. And I've got a little shelf next to my shower. And when my phone rings while I'm in the shower, I can look and see who it is. Most of the time I don't answer, but if it's that mom, I shut my water off and answer, because that's where she's at. But I was able to tell Maddie, you know, last night I accidentally missed a call from her because my phone was 6 feet away from me and the TV was up too loud, I didn't hear it. But I didn't answer. And you know what? She didn't fall apart. So in the last 2.5 years, she's grown. And so 2.5 years ago, my answer to this might have been different. I might have said, you know, if you have the ability to help her, help her. But now, she can figure this out. She called me last night, and this crisis that she asked Maddie to fix, she's figured out. So you are welcome to call me. You're all welcome to call me specific. If you can't get a hold of Susan, you're welcome to call me. And sometimes we may let Susan go on vacation. I don't know. And then you can call me too. But also, if you have a question like that, and you know, there's this fine line, and I don't know which, I'm more than happy to process with you.
Okay.
I won't give you all the answers, but at least we can look at it from different perspectives.
Yes.
just one day this week, I don't know which day.
Once upon a time this
Once
week.
upon a time this week, I had a long conversation with one of our moms that's in between a hosting. They host a specific family. Okay, they have stepped into this family's life and is hosting, and she was asking a boundaries question. Well, what about and so we had a long conversation about boundaries at that point. So it comes up,
It's
and
very
we're here
much-
for you.
It's very much.
Yeah, honestly, I think the boundaries issue probably comes up more than anything else. At least that from, I'm not as involved in the day-to-day, but from what I hear from them, like boundaries is the number one thing.
And we've had a fair amount of experience as foster parents and with young single mothers with a lot of, and I would say I would put that at the top of my list in terms of things to be prepared for. Just that you're going to come across things you never even dreamed you'd come across, but just to know that, for example, money. They might ask you for $5, they might ask you for $200, but you got to know we're not going there. You can't give them $5 because if you give them $5, next time it'll be $20. And what does that look like? And how do you communicate that up front the first time they ask?
And I do cover that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How are some very specific ways that I can say no?
Kind of some scripts.
Yep.
But I think you're wise to ask that question because at least it's on your radar because I think people can get caught off guard by that.
Yeah.
But
And
the boundaries
also-
is huge, so I'm glad you covered
Yeah.
it.
And also, Susan, you're right. There are times that we definitely say do not give, but there are also times that God says, you have it, and today is the day you share.
Absolutely, and that is so true.
And at that point, I'm
Yeah.
going to say, "Oh, honey, don't listen to Jesus today." That's not what I'm going to do. So,
Talk about it first. Talk about it. I would say one, if I could,
we have to these kids.
if I could summarize the boundaries training, and I would say, I wish I would have had the boundaries training before I even got married, right? What a great, think about having children and then you deal with your parents. It's like, man, this is a good training for just adult life. But
it's great for raising teenagers.
yes. So if I could sum it up in a nutshell, I'd say it's always easier to expand your boundaries than to shrink them.
absolutely.
And so if you start out with a big yard, well then you better be ready for a party, right? But if you start out small, it's like, okay, it's just this little intimate, we're having a little bonfire, and now it's like, okay, now we can go here, now we can go here. But you have to earn their trust, they have to earn your trust, and that's a process. And
It's just a few friends, right?
yes, just a few friends. So and Ronnie will do that, and it's a great training that you'll watch.
So I think that's really important
Mm.
is to, you have no idea what you're stepping into,
Yeah.
what yard. And he keeps everything tight and I'm like, let's go, let's
Yeah.
go.
We talk about that
Yeah.
too. Usually they're married to each other.
Yeah, they are.
But, just keeping it tight and, I used to always tell our mom that, I have to talk to Mike first.
Yep.
And that would
Great
be
boundary. That is
Yeah.
the response. She had to accept it, or
Yeah.
she wasn't getting anything.
Yeah.
Because it
That's
has to go through him.
Yeah.
we have he's officially retiring tomorrow. We have a staff member who is Mr. Generous, and he came from some really rough places in his life, and his heart is just ginormous. He used to work with me in the Beyond Prison program, and he would tell the inmates, "My wife takes care of all of the books, and I'm on a budget. I am on an allowance." Because anybody that would go up to Jim and say, "I need," he would go, "Oh yeah, here," and he wouldn't confirm, and he wouldn't think about, is this going to be healthy for them, and so everything that he did, he had to get his wife's permission, and the guy said, "Oh man, he said, I have a roof over my head because of it," and if he didn't, he wouldn't have a roof over his head. He'd be living under a bridge in a box.
Mm.
That's
But I think just keep it small. I have to check with my spouse. It gives you time to think.
Yeah.
That time is really good.
Yeah.
Time is a great boundary.
And I just feel like it's easier to set boundaries with this person. I mean, it's a fairly intimate relationship with a parent.
Yeah.
You know, because we did do foster care, and it's a fairly intimate relationship with a stranger.
Yeah.
And so to navigate it, you just have to be on the same page.
Yep.
You know, and you talk about boundaries. We were asked at one point to pay for an abortion, and you
I was
know,
too.
yeah, I mean, the stuff that you get asked is just crazy.
Yeah. Wow.
Also, if you have a family, another plug here real quick. If you have a family that has financial needs, we have a couple of different options through Christian Heritage that a lot of times we are able to help with some of those needs. And so that's another option. Let's check with Ronnie or Susan or Libby and see what we can do with this.
Yeah.
So we've got a fund that's called Hope Wins that people have just donated to that is there specifically for meeting concrete needs in a tight place. And then we have an option called Care Portal, which is a tool.
It's
It's
an app.
an online
Yeah.
tool. It's an app that different churches in the community have signed up, and I can post something for almost any of my moms, and if I say Families Together is supporting, there's a couple churches that say, oh, we're on it, and if it has been cleared by me, and I've said this family has this need and they are able for legit reasons, we can get just about anything covered. So that's another, as far as finances, if you feel so led, you know, again, don't listen to Jesus today, not going there. If you feel led to support them that way, and you're on the same page with it, that's okay. If there is a legit need and you're not sure what to do about it, it's very possible that we have resources that can help our families.
And speaking of resources, sometimes the kids come in with clothing. They don't have enough clothing. Mom doesn't have, that doesn't fit right. They only have summer and we're going into winter, things like that. We have donations that aren't really well organized, but we can find
But
them.
someday they will.
That's the plan. But we have room that we have clothing that we can go in and start looking for. And it may not always be exactly matching outfits like some of my friends would have their kids wear, but it's a pair of jeans and a shirt or sweatpants and a shirt or things like that that we can get these kids. And you don't have to go out and buy for 3 kids that just walked in your house after you bought your kids last week and you're looking at the budget going, oh my.
Is that something the care community could help with as well?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You can reach out to your care community and say, the kids just arrived and
One of them's in diapers.
one of them's in diapers. Or a boy, age 7, has 1 pair of pants for school and no socks. Well, your care community might help that. We need meals. We've got all this going around, or transportation. Anything that you can think of that can help you take care of those kids. Oh my, I'm in the midst of sick children. Can somebody please come help me clean my kitchen, do the laundry, and clean the bathrooms? You have people in the care community that will do that for you.
Just made me think, like, if they are, when you said they're in diapers, like, if they are in daycare, see, I'm just so far past daycare.
No, this is
Getting
fine.
Yeah,
ridiculous, but
they're
like,
good.
if they're in daycare, like, do the daycare fees come to us?
No.
they
No,
don't?
no. Most
Like, if
again,
they're already going somewhere?
most of the families we serve are on Medicare, Medicaid,
And
and
they have
and
Title 20.
Title 20. That
Title 9 is something.
If they weren't
Title no.
enrolled in a daycare, like, if they were just hanging with mom? like,
So if they weren't enrolled in daycare, then realistically, and you're working, and I know that from your self-study, right? I'm probably not gonna call you as my first choice without having solved that problem, right? That doesn't mean that I might not still do a Hail Mary, right? If I'm really desperate and all of our, stay at home or retired families, right? If they're all full and I've got no other choice, right? I might still call you and I might say, would you have space if we can, we have one host home that has a daycare, an in-home daycare, right? And so they usually have space for us if it might not be close to your house,
That's what I mean, like if it was an option for us to find where they go to daycare at, like if
Most
they were
of the
coming
kids,
here.
if the family has Title 20, the kids are already assigned to a daycare.
Okay.
Yep.
And Title 20 is paying that daycare. And so then if you have the ability to transport them before you get to work, that's great. If not, let's work on the care community.
Yep.
And if they do not have Title 20, then they don't have any daycare. So then it is a matter of, do we know somebody that can? Is there somebody in the care community that we can background check and we can do a little bit of training with that can watch them? Or we've got the one host home, we
Yeah.
have, one other family that has said, maybe this is where we could serve in this area. So we'll look at our different options.
So maybe another couple minutes for questions, then I'll wrap this up. So
Could you potentially have partners, and I think, for example, if you guys decided to be a host home and we're gonna be part of the care community, but could we sort of be attached to them, like we're handling the part where you're working with the adult?
advocacy.
We're the family advocate for the mom, but they're taking care of the kids, but we really partner together, not only to support each other, but we're kind of taking the mom and sheltering that off of them so they can focus on caring for the kids.
I love that.
Is that
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Now there's a couple different things that I'd like to talk about with that. We do not have a discharge process because our family's greatest need is connection.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yes, that is absolutely an option. Sometimes, like Doug and Maddie that were up here, they served this one mom and this one baby, and they were one and done. And 2.5 years later, they are still serving that mom and that baby. We have another host home, the one that just ended last Friday. They have had 3 different hostings for us, and one of the moms that they hosted will probably need another hosting down the road, and if we can put that child back in that home, we're going to do that because she's already bonded there.
Mm-hmm.
But they aren't necessarily a one and done there. Okay, who's next? Who's next? And so we have the different situations, and so sometimes you're going to think, well, this is going to be for 2 weeks and we're done, and then you go, but wait. We're going to follow this mom, and that is also something to keep in mind.
If you're connecting as we are with this one gal,
Right.
6 years.
she's got your number. She calls when she's gonna get kicked out of her apartment, and she calls when she needs money, and
Yeah.
so.
They become extended family.
And as like I said, this using Doug and Maddie because 2.5 years in, we've seen amazing growth in this mom. And Maddie said the other day, do you know what she said to me? She said, "How are you guys doing?"
Yeah.
Which is something we did not hear.
Yeah.
We did not hear that 2 years ago. I come up on my caller ID and I'd say, hey,
Right.
and every once in a while, it's not every time, but every once in a while she'll say, is everything okay? That's right.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, and I, hey girl, I just need to tell you something. I've seen growth in you. I've seen this. And she's like, really? I didn't even know that. And so then she's prompted to.
Okay, maybe one more. No more? Any more? Well, if you have more questions, you've got our contact info, our emails and whatnot. I'll just end with this, a couple of things to put in front of you, and then we'll wrap up and pray. Two kind of just calls to consider. One, you guys filled out that care community activity, and you had a whole lot of names on it. Those are the people in your life that you trust, that you believe in, that you love, that you think would maybe have a gift or a talent to offer for what you're doing, and you want to invite them into what God's doing in your life. We would just ask you, who could you ask to be a part of something like this next time? Who could you go to and say, hey, I took this training. There's going to be another one at First Free in February. You should go to that. Or there's going to be another one at Christ Place in October. I don't know if we're doing that. You should go to that one. There's going to be more things like this where they can get just an introduction. You can tell them you're not committing to anything. These people might hound you a little bit after you take this class, but if I want you to just see what God might do, and so it's another way that you guys can help us, because peer-to-peer recruiting works a lot better than somebody like me or Brian or you guys who go in and go, oh, we want you to do this. So those people that you trust and you believe in, who's maybe those couple people that you could just say, hey, you should take that class. You would benefit from it. You would love it. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, we talked about this the very first week. And we said, this is a completely volunteer program. You're volunteering. We're not volunteering, but we run a volunteer program, right? The parents who work with us volunteer. The kids are not wards of the state. They're with their mom. They're with you, and so they're in that kind of a flux. The churches who are working with us, like Messiah, are voluntarily saying, yeah, we want to be a part of that. So part of that is, we don't work with the state, and there's no state contracts. And so if a part of you is like, we want to contribute financially to what we're doing, we'd love for you to consider that. I'm not going to make you make a decision. I'm not even going to send you an email and say, hey, do you want to give? But if that's on your heart and you have the capacity to do it, we would love to talk to you. And you can just email me and say, yeah, I'd love to know. We'd love to know your goals and what you're shooting for, what you're trusting the Lord for. Because the reality is we want to raise enough funds privately so that a program like this can flourish and, Lord willing, someday outpace foster care in Nebraska. It might not be in my lifetime. I might not see that. But my dream is that someday in Nebraska, we wouldn't need a foster care because a program like this exists. It's probably going to take more Christian heritages. It's probably going to take more, Susan, Ronnie, and Libby's, and it's going to take more of you, but maybe in 25 years, 50 years, 70 years, I don't know. But we need financial partners to do that. So if God's put that on your heart, we'd love to hear from you about that. Okay, last thing is, again, we'll send you an email tomorrow where we'll have a link to this video. We'll have kind of next steps and who you should contact depending on what you want to do. We have all your emails, and starting in January, we're going to just have a monthly newsletter for everybody who's a part of the CH family. So whether that's host homes, foster parents, staff, donors, all that kind of stuff, where we can share stories of what God's doing, not just in Families Together, but in foster care. And so we'll start that in January. And I'll also say, if you go through this process, you start hosting kids, and you have stories of redemption and healing that you want to share, please share them with me, because we want other people to know that as we communicate each month with the people who are part of Christian Heritage. So that's all from me. You guys have anything else you want to share?
Can I ask one more question?
Yeah.
Are there dads involved?
There are, but there's just so few.
Right
are the
now.
dads?
Right now, I am serving one 2-parent family, and they have had a whole lot of trauma. Dad has long COVID, and they're waiting for the disability to kick in. So this family of 5, and mom has a whole lot of autoimmune disorders, and she's a fighter, and she's spunky, and she's the one who said, I just need the host home to tell me what their boundaries are, so I can follow them. But she's spunky, and she works when she can, but sometimes she just can't. And he is absolutely not able to work anymore at all. And furthermore, he can't drive. And furthermore, when he does laundry, he passes out. It's just, COVID has really hit them hard. And so I work with them. We've had, in the last year and a half, I think, 2 or 3 other dads that have called for hostings. And either we did not have a host home available, or we, for whatever reason, could not serve. We have a couple criteria that we are unable to meet. So if a child's behavior is very severe, we're not gonna give them to you guys, because we're giving you some training, but not to that level. And if there's extreme medical issues, unless we have somebody with medical background. So for whatever reason, we were unable to care for the other one's kids. So very rarely do we get dads that call us, and very rarely do we have 2 families that call us. And all of that comes with the trauma that we talked about a couple days ago. When you've had a lot of trauma, you get into unhealthy patterns because that's what you grew up with. That is your normal. And when you get into these your normal unhealthy patterns, all you do is you destroy relationships. And because you carried the baby as the woman, babies usually stay with mom. Occasionally they don't, but most of the time they do. And then mom is still in an unhealthy pattern, and she's still looking for, and she ends up with another baby. And so that's.
So the dads are unhealthy too.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, we had one situation where for a night, one of our families was in a hotel, and the dad of the oldest 2 was in the same hotel because he was homeless, and the kids thought that it was just so great because they got to see dad.
They haven't been under the same roof with dad for years. Yeah. Happened to be, he was in another hotel room down the road.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'll end with this actually. I'll say this because once you get into this kind of work, you may never hear this other than from these 3. Thank you. Like, thank you for doing this. Like, you know, I'm younger than all of you probably. I'm proud of you, and I appreciate it. And it's an example for me. It's an example for them, even though they work with people like you every day. But we just thank you. Like, Christian Heritage couldn't do what it does without you guys. And so we're grateful for your entering into this journey and continuing. You've made it to the last week. You're still here. So thank you so much. So